creativity on chain and make sure that they're the ones benefiting. Everyone everywhere gets the same access, no matter where you're born, no matter where you live. This is the future of the internet. This is on chain.
Everybody, welcome to the Base Game Night number 15. I've been doing these for 15 weeks in a row strong, and I'm really excited for this. We did a new transition ever since we restarted the space. Last week we had the winners of the Incubase. This week we have two of the different teams of the largest arcades on Base. We have Daryl behind B3, and we have Sam Stefania that is behind Remix. So thank you both for joining. It's an absolute honor having both of y'all in the space.
Amazing. Thanks for having us. And also, honor for me actually to share the space next to the one and only Sam. I think for those that don't know, Sam hosts this amazing weekly show called Gamified, literally carrying the torch for Web3 gaming. But they also talk Web2, Web3 gaming, and super high energy, lots of alpha. You guys should check out Gamified if you have a chance.
Daryl, flattery will get you everywhere, my friend. Great to see you again, man. A big fan of B3 and what you guys are doing too. Excited to play Sanctuary again too, man. It's been like 8 months or something since the Parallel World Championships now, so I'm dying. Can't wait to see the update.
Yeah, no, we're excited to share with you guys.
Yeah, no, speaking of updates, both of your projects have gone through recent updates or recent rebrandings. Remix was previously Farcade, and Daryl, you transitioned B3 into a consumer economy. So I'm really excited to kind of dive into both of these different products, and yeah, no, it's going to be exciting. Sam, I might kick you off stage and bring you back up later, but feel free to have some water as I interrogate Daryl.
So, love it. What's the first question, Zach? I'm ready to be interrogated.
I think my first question is just going to be, how's the rebranding going? How's everything going? Because B3 not only is the biggest platform on Base for games specifically, but now you're the biggest platform on Base for everything.
Yeah. And Zach, I think to take a quick step back and give folks some context and history, earlier this week on A3, we announced essentially an expansion of our original vision, right, which was to scale fun on Base. And I think fun can mean a bunch of different things. To me, personally, fun means games, fun consumer applications, new markets to trade, new experiences. And so it's really exciting for us to tease a little bit of our thinking of how what we built can expand not only to gaming, right, but to other parts of the consumer sector as well. And so on A3, we announced a little bit of what that vision looks like, but to provide a little bit more color, what we have done in the last year is build this infrastructure that we think of as the bedrock of our ecosystem. And so to give folks a little bit of context, we have B3 Mainnet, which is a L3 that sits on top of Base as the hub, but our vision has always been scale. Right, onboarding millions of users, Candy Crush-like applications and games. And so for those folks, they require tremendous throughput and scale and essentially gasless transactions. So from the start, right, we've been helping large developers and enterprises think about blockchains that they can build themselves. And of course, it all ties back to Base. And so all of these are essentially app chains and rollups. I think what's changed in just the last month or two is we have a lot of these game chains that are ready to go live. A few of them are on testnet. I'll show you guys in a second. But we also have a ton of enterprises and large developers that now are ready to graduate to their own chain. And I think folks always ask, like, why do they need their own chain, right? Why can't they just launch directly on mainnet or an L1 or maybe a non-EVM L2 or L1. I think the concept here is pretty simple. For these folks that are inheriting a large audience, let's just say like a Fortune 50 company, right, that has 100 million plus users, it really doesn't make sense for them to share block space with someone else. For them, I think it makes sense for them to have control over the parameters, and then also for them to enable unique experiences that are specific to their vision and what they're trying to build. One example of that would be, okay, if this is a big mobile consumer app company, right, they would want a seamless login experience from iOS and from Android directly onto that chain. And by owning the chain itself, they're able to build complementary parts to make sure that experience is as seamless as possible. So we're just seeing a lot of demand for that. And that's why we're expanding from gaming to the broader consumer sector, because a ton of these folks will announce pretty soon and have actual experiences that people can tap into and reward or get rewards from and engage with. So we're super excited about that.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited because whenever you made that transition, first I had a whole bunch of questions and then I just read through the Twitter thread and you had so many use cases. So I'm going to let you share your screen. I'm going to let you kind of give an overview of the new updates of everything. But I've seen a quick sneak peek. It's on y'all's website. So I think it's really cool how everything looks very streamlined.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me share what we think is the best window into what we're building. So if folks go to explorer.b3.fun, this is what I have up on my screen. It doesn't look like your traditional Explorer. I think folks usually go to Etherscan or Basecamp or SoulScan or something along those lines. I think for us, while those solutions are great, right, for a specific type of audience, what we're building is essentially a hub and spoke ecosystem of chains and rollups. And so we wanted an Explorer that could show basically all different dimensions and aspects of that. So let me actually just start here. If you go into this area of the screen, you'll see total blocks, total transactions, right? The number of wallets that we have in the ecosystem, the number of token holders. But the most interesting feature of what we launched is essentially this block feed and this transaction feed. And here you'll be able to index and capture transactions from all of the chains that are launching on B3. Right, in the B3 ecosystem. So it shows it in aggregate and shows that this is not an ecosystem of just one chain, but actually an ecosystem of many different applications and developers coming together. The second thing actually that we thought would make the Explorer experience a little bit easier for folks is, and especially for someone like me who's not in the on-chain trenches or doesn't have the ability actually or know how to be an on-chain sleuth. I'm not as smart as Zach XBT, right? But if you just wanted to learn a little bit more about what's going on, backed by some on-chain data, right? We actually built an AI tool here that can help you do that. It can do a number of things. You can deploy an ERC20 on B3 or any of B3's chains, but also you could just say like, hey, what's the B3 chain, right? And you can type it in. The AI will come back, right, with essentially some details about B3, and then from there you can go as deep as you want. So you can see the latest transactions on B3, you can see what NFTs are evolving, what's the best way to, let's say, play and earn, right? So there's all these different things that you can start to do with the Explorer that we think is a little bit more powerful for the average user or average community member that's looking to get a little bit more involved. The other piece we're super excited about too on the Explorer is if you go down here, right, because the ecosystem is growing so quickly, we wanted to give a simple surface, right, for folks to come and discover all of the different things. So the ones that you see here are just the initial set. They're actually mostly incubated by us. So these are our first party products. But very quickly here, you'll see new prediction markets and new sports betting applications that will show up here that are built in the B3 ecosystem that you can come and check out. So this is kind of like our Explorer interface, if you will. And if you could just click, let's say on Basement, for example, you'll go to basement.com, which is where you can go in the B3 ecosystem to play Flash games, web-based games, and try out a bunch of different things that are interesting to you as a user. So that is Basement. And I think the other thing to touch on, Zach, too, is just how our ecosystem is evolving. So the Explorer that you saw is really the technical and infrastructure foundation of our ecosystem with chains and mainnets and rollups and whatnot. But we also have two different parts. And let me just share my screen here. 1 second. So the way we like to think about the ecosystem now, just to simplify it for folks, is there's the protocol layer, right? That's what you saw with the Explorer, the mainnet, and the chains themselves. There's also two additional parts. There's the ecosystem layer, which we think of as developer tools, so SDKs and APIs that make it easy for any developer to deploy on-chain, whether it's B3 or not B3, right? And a lot of these pieces of tooling we actually built ourselves because we essentially needed them to power our applications like Basement, like Stake to Win, and a few others that are coming down the pipeline. And so you'll see here, right, you can go in and there's quite a few different pieces of tooling that we're super excited about. There's a wallet solution, there's the easy template and ability to deploy on-chain leaderboards, create achievements on-chain, enable on-chain wagering. And then there's also new ways to monetize, which we feel like is a very powerful primitive. One of the things we're excited about is AnySpend. And so I'm going to transition here actually to the AnySpend site itself.
I love how all of this kind of comes together into the B3 platform as well. Not only are you focused on how to build the products, but you're also focused on how to monetize. That's actually really huge for a lot of gamers out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think monetization and business model challenges have been persistent in gaming and also broader consumer, right? And we feel like one of the core primitives, like Zora is showing, is the ability for developers and creators to monetize, and wanted to make that as easy as possible. So if you go into the AnySpend site, this is the standalone site, but it's also an SDK that you can integrate into your application. It's essentially an easy way for someone to on-ramp into the ecosystem, right? So a new user that wants to pay maybe with the existing crypto they have, but it's not base ETH, right? They can just pick any crypto they have, right? Whether it's, let's see, Ethereum on Ethereum, or it's CBBTC, right? Or something on Solana. They could pick any one of these tokens and they can swap it for anything. And so for us, our use case, most of our first party applications live on Base itself because we see Base as the liquidity hub. And so everyone needs some ETH on Base to get started. So if you go through any of our products and go through the flows, you'll actually go through something like this where it's easy for you to pay with any crypto and get it to ETH on Base. The other piece that's interesting, and folks can demo this offline. I think it'll be too time consuming for me to walk through the entire thing. But the idea here is you can very simply pay with credit card, debit card, or even Apple Pay and get your first dollars in ETH on Base, right? And I think for a consumer application, that's super important because onboarding friction, I think, is always one of the most painful points in terms of drop-off. And so we want to make that on-ramp experience as smooth as possible. So you'll see here, it basically goes through different payment methods depending on your location and where you want to pay from, and helps you choose the one that's basically the most seamless. So you won't have to go through like a brokerage-like KYC process where you have to give away the name of your firstborn and your social security number and your passport and ID verification. This is all leveraging existing rails like Coinbase Pay, right, that make it easy for you to just buy your first crypto as if it was like an e-commerce checkout experience.
This is actually a really cool platform. So I know that you said that you probably can't go over everything. I do have one question about AnySpend. B3 has incubated an amazing project called Bond, which allows you to launch a token on B3. So if I were to launch a token on B3, could I trade it on AnySpend?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a great question. I think our vision with AnySpend is to be the connective tissue between the user and the application. And so the beauty about AnySpend is it literally indexes any token that's available for trading, right? And so if you deploy Zach.pump.fund, right, using our bond kit, and you need some fiat rail or some on-ramp solution that's frictionless, you can integrate AnySpend, and then immediately you'll be able to give users the option of onboarding from Ethon Base or Solana or whatever token they have into ZachCoin, so then they can start bonding some Zach memes or whatever they want.
No, I like it. AnySpend's really interesting. I love y'all's overview, but I love Bond as well, especially the logo behind it. So I think this is crazy cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I just have to say, there wasn't any spend token that was launched. I have no idea who did it or when it was launched, but that token does not have any affiliation with any spend. And so I just wanted to call that out for folks that are watching or listening. That token is not affiliated with the AnySpend product itself.
Yeah, no, just B3, the main ecosystem.
Exactly. So actually going back to the different layers, I think, Zach, what you mentioned around Bond is super important as well, because that's another toolkit that fits within the ecosystem layer. So if people need an on-ramp, they can use AnySpend. If people want to launch their own launch pads, we have BondKit that they can tap into. And I know some base developers are looking into it right now. So you can think of the ecosystem layer as tooling and primitives. And then the last layer that is interesting about what we're building is the application layer, right? And so we're not just building tooling, we're not just building connective tissue, we're actually bringing to life our thesis and our differentiated opinion on what we think the future of consumer could look like, right? And what the future of gaming could look like. Basement was our demonstration of what kind of on-chain gaming could look like in an easy and accessible way with on-chain rewards. But there's so much more. There's prediction markets, sports betting, on-chain loyalty programs, right? There's all these interesting facets of the consumer sector that we'll be putting out as well. But for us, the B3 ecosystem, we're not just a chain, we're not just tooling, but we're also building fun apps that people can use and engage with. And I think the one thing I just want to leave folks with is, all of this, all of these layers, kind of all of the products, everything we're building will tie back to the B3 token. So that's the alpha, if you guys saw the thread, right? That's the core of what we're trying to push forward, because we think today it's great that we have so many tokens out there. I think the unfortunate reality is most of those tokens don't actually accrue or give back value to their token holders in a direct way, right? A lot of the times they're just proxies or approximations of like the success of something, right? And so it's very pie in the sky in my opinion. But for us, right, if the AnySpend product is generating millions of dollars in fees and revenue, that will directly go back to B3 token holders because they invested in us, in what we're building, right, which is all of these layers. The chain itself, for example, B3 mainnet, it runs today. It's done over 400 million transactions, it has 18 million wallets. It's accumulated sequencer fees, right? Those sequencer fees will go back to buying the B3 token. So the idea here is no matter where value comes from in this ecosystem, in this portfolio of products across the three layers, there's always some tie-in back for a B3 token holder. And so we think that's unique. And I think, honestly, more folks should, look into doing something like that, because then you're actually rewarding your community, right? And making them a part of the process of you succeeding.
I like it. I definitely think it's interesting. But you hinted at something that I thought was kind of interesting to highlight. 18 million wallets. Is that a new record for B3? New all-time high for 18 million wallets. That's huge.
I think so. So if we go back, let's see.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back to the Explorer.
Yeah, this is why we have the Explorer. So yes, 18 and a half and 2.2 million token holders, which I'm really proud of, because that shows people are believing in the vision. I think it's one of the largest on Base outside of meme coins. And the wallet piece, I'm sure both of these metrics have been boosted by just the amazing work that you and the rest of the Base team have done, because Base season, I think right now, is in effect. right?
Yeah.
And so it's helping. It's the tide that's lifting all the boats, and we're excited to be a part of that.
Speaking of base season, Daryl, am I going to see you at base camp?
That is a good question. That is a good question. I think
Oh,
for
no.
us, we have travel in Asia right now. And so there's Token 2049, there's KBW. Actually, one of our colleagues is in Vietnam giving
Yeah.
a main stage talk on basically the same thing that I've been doing. So lots of travel coming up. So I don't know if we'll exactly cross paths then. But Zach, are you based in Austin? Was that
Yes,
do I
sir.
remember that correctly? Yeah.
Yes.
We'll probably make our way out there soon. And so, even if we don't get a chance to meet at one of the group events, I would love to meet you in person. That would be a real pleasure.
I like it. No, I host a lot of game jams here, so always happy to have B3 out. But unfortunately, we lost all of our major conferences. Both permissionless and consensus moved. So,
Oh, man.
but no, I know, Daryl, I know that your team is based pretty much globally. Y'all have a whole bunch of people in California, a whole bunch of people in New York, and I know we'll run into each other eventually. There's got to be a crypto conference around.
Yeah. It seems like there's one in every city these days. I would say it's a little bit too much, too bloated to be honest. But you're right. Our team is pretty global and distributed. We have folks in the U.S., a lot of talented folks in Asia and Europe as well. And not gonna lie, it's a little bit hard sometimes coordinating like time zones and differences. But what we try to do is have like one big offsite to get everyone together, and that's also why logistics may be difficult because we're trying to do that in like the next month and a half to 2 months.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Well, Daryl, thank you so much for joining. I'll blow you up on Telegram, but it's an absolute honor having you on, and it's an honor. I think this is your second or third time, so it's really cool. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. Thank you, Zach.
So if anyone has any questions for B3, Daryl's actually hosting an AMA in about 37 minutes in the B3 Discord. Make sure to check them out. Make sure to stalk Daryl on Twitter and join the B3 Discord. Blow them up with questions. All right, next I'm going to bring up Sam Stefania. So,
What's up,
Sam,
guys?
Content Creator of the Year 2023, massive gaming influencer, and then all of a sudden, remix.
It was as surprising to me as it was to everybody else, honestly. I've been friends with Charlie and Bobby for about 2.5 years now. I met them at GDC 3 GDCs ago, which is about 2.5 years, and I was with them, whenever they were working on the previous product, always giving them feedback, but never on the team. And Charlie actually was at my house whenever he came up with the idea for the Farcade. He was on the phone with Bobby. We were here playing World of Warcraft. He was sitting like right over there. And so it's really cool to see it come full circle. He was always calling me, being like, "Yeah, I've got this idea for the Farcade. I've got that idea for the Farcade. What do you think? What do you think?" And I loved talking with him about it. It was one of the more interesting advisories that I was doing at the time, because I work with about 12 different companies in an advisory capacity, less so now than I used to. And it's been awesome to see how much progress they made. And one day he was like, "Man, I know you're probably too busy, but like any chance you would ever consider joining us?" And I was like, it's so far off my radar to do something full time. I really don't think so, but let me sleep on it and we'll talk. And then we had a few more meetings. I slept on it. I did a bunch of meditation, which is weird for me, but I was so conflicted. I was like, I'm gonna just sit quietly for a while. And man, I just couldn't imagine a role more perfectly suited for me. The intersection of Web3 gaming, it's sort of got social media elements, and then of course, also I'm super fanatic about AI, and I wasn't finding enough time personally to be able to dive into it. So I'm just really excited about joining an AI company where it would just be part of the culture all the time. And it's been incredible. I'm already 6 months deep, and I've loved it.
Dang, that's crazy. And I gotta say, welcome to Base. I love that
Thank
not
you.
only Remix joined, but you're helping a lot of different projects on Base as well. You're collaborating with a lot of different projects. You did something with OpenSea, was it last week?
Yeah, we just wrapped up the tournaments on Monday, and we're rolling out a few different things, including OpenSea. This is actually unannounced. OpenSea is going to have their own Snap app, which is essentially a mini app partnered with Remix, so that's available right now. If you guys search a little bit of alpha, you can search OpenSea on Farcaster or on Base App, and you'll see their mini app with all their, well, not all of them. We picked the top 20 games out of 170 submissions, so you can play the top games on their own mini app right now.
I love that. And just the scale of how easy Remix is to use. He said top 20 out of what, 170 or 107?
Yeah, 170. So it was our most popular game jam to date by about 50 or 60 submissions. I think Doodles got like 110-ish. So just incredible to see, man, how fast the creation is scaling. Because honestly, we're so distracted with doing a few major features that we want to push that the studio hasn't evolved as much as we want it to. And so we can only imagine how much people will be creating as we make it even easier from here.
Dang, that's so exciting. And your team scales so fast. I know you've tweeted this out before, but you're the only non-developer on the team. But I feel like you say that you have an idea and then bam, they do it. And it's done.
That's right, man. I mean, it's the magic of AI in a lot of cases. Like, it's no secret. We code our own app with a lot of AI, and we're super lucky that both the co-founders, Charlie and Bobby, are both coders at heart. And so whenever they believe that something is the top priority, like, they will ship it exactly that day. Even last night, you know, we have a couple of we have a game jam that we just announced today with Forgotten Runes, and then we also have a few activations going on with some other communities. And I was expressing some of the issues that I've been having as a user with the Creator Studio. And so, like, literally late last night and early this morning, they were just knocking out a bunch of little quality of life things to make sure that we're at least making the onboarding easier, and that whenever people jump in and have their first experience, hopefully it's a good one so that they can keep coming back. Because we believe, like Duolingo, if you keep trying to learn a language, Duolingo says that's the #1 factor in whether or not you do. There's a lot of people that'll be like, I'm going to do it for 4 hours every day, and they do it for like a month, but they lose out to the people that do it every day for 5 minutes for a year. And we believe that it's similar here. You need to be willing to give yourself that time to really understand how the AI thinks and what works and what doesn't. And if you're willing to do that, you're going to be, you know, top 1% in this world as far as being able to engage with AI tools in a year or two, which is really exciting to look at.
No, I like it. So I'm going to let you share your screen just because you talked about Duolingo. If you do it 5 minutes every day, well, Remix also has a daily score streak. If you play Remix every single day, you'll watch your points grow. You can play a lot of the new games. I'm in y'all's Telegram chat. I don't know if you noticed, but a new game just dropped 3 minutes ago. So Remix is crazy. Sam, do you want to give a quick overview of the platform?
Yeah, you could see there I was actually playing some games. Sorry, my screen is a little stretched weird, so it might look a little funny. But yeah, so this is, whenever you go to Remix GG, what you'll see. We're available on Base App, Farcaster, Telegram, and World App. Like I was mentioning, you can distribute your own mini apps through our app. And these are some of the games that we've had released on the platform. So you can see a platformer, a sort of Rocket League type game. Match 3, this is a Survivors-like, where, you know, this game is like 2-minute play sessions, and this one's like 20-minute play sessions, and then Hyperheat's like 30-second play sessions, so you really have the full gambit. But I'm so proud of what we have right here, which is Inside the Sim, one of our best builders. He's got almost 500,000 plays of his games, and then Volks with an insane 28,000 hours spent playing his games already, which is just bananas to me. Pixel Survivors is one of his games, the Survivors-like game with really long play sessions. So super proud of that. But then you can see their whole catalog here as well. So on our app or on our website, one of the things that we ran into is, like, we thought the authentication, even though it's really easy with, like, you just open up Farcaster or Telegram, whatever, it's still pretty annoying because you just want to play the games. Like, there's all these flashing lights and colors and stuff. So we made it so that whenever you're on here, if you want to click any of these games, you actually don't need to authenticate. So let's just say, like, I want to play Parsec Run, it just pops open, you don't have to log in, whatever that was, in 2 seconds, I'm able to play the game, and I'm able to get a feel for it, hopefully have a good experience, and then be off to the races. Let's say I miss, okay, game over, now I can authenticate if I want to, or I could just run it back, stay in the browser. But if you do authenticate, let me take you guys to our Creator Studio. So here's where you see the game jams. This is the one that we have going on right now. if you want to view details, you could see how to get the assets to participate. So basically, we're integrating Forgotten Runes, one of the best NFT collections and games in Web3. You can integrate their assets into the games that you're building and then be eligible for up to 2 ETH in prizes that we have going on right now. But you have gamer achievements, you get weekly points. This is inspired by Abstract Chain and their weekly point system. We have our streak that Zach mentioned a second ago, your builder tier. Unfortunately, I'm not yet a great builder, but I do have a game called Fred the Fisher. Shout out to Fred. I've got my builder badges and my remix points as well. And so we've really tried to gamify the entire experience, inspired by Abstract and by Duolingo, like you mentioned, Zach. Like, I mean, Duolingo, it's insane, dude. Like a language learning app that people have just become insanely addicted to is something I didn't think we would ever see, but they've managed to do it way sooner than I would have expected.
No, I fully agree. And they have the same type of achievements that I see hosted on the Remix platform. I think that's actually really cool. There's something that you talked about before we started the space, and I think it's actually, I'm going to let you jump into the OpenSea real quick. So you did a game jam with OpenSea, and does this mean that any NFT on OpenSea could be in a game on Remix?
Yeah, so people integrated Moonbirds and Goblin Town NFTs and Bored Ape Yacht Club NFTs, all sorts of stuff, which was really cool to see because it's just so on theme. And then, of course, a lot of boats and ships and stuff. But I wanted to show this off. So this is one of the games that we have on the platform that's actually very popular. It's inspired by Doodle Jump. So Oliver, the head of BD at OpenSea, said, let's make something along those lines. And I just wanted to show people what it looks like. And this is a cut up video that we made from a live stream that we did. So after one prompt with the AI, this is what it looks like. Sort of works. There's a lot of issues where, like, if you fall off to the side, you just kind of lose that. You can't jump high enough to get up to the second platform. There's some real fundamental flaws. But this is actually back when we were still called the Farcade. So this is I think 3 months ago we recorded this. And one of the things I wanted to point out here is he's coding in what we call natural language. So natural language is, let's say, I actually wrote down an example because I don't know how to code, so I needed a real coding example. So to fix things in coding, it might sound something like bind event to trigger input boundary context proxy instance, open parentheses, close parentheses. That's like a real coding command. But in this case, he's literally just saying, can you reduce the gravity? And so that's the opportunity here, because I can't figure out how to code. I've tried 2 or 3 different times, but I can definitely say the gravity is not working the way that I expect. That's an instinct that I have as a gamer, is I want this to fundamentally work like all the other platformers that I've played previously. Or maybe I have an idea on how to make a brand new platformer that's totally, out of bounds compared to what we've done so far. And so I'll skip forward a little bit as we get through some of this dialogue. But then we decide to add breakable platforms. There's some power-ups, among other things. And you can see that it's also adding these particle effects, which is really, really hard to do if you're not a game designer. Or if you are, it might still take you a week to do that one little element. And so we're really stoked that the AI was able to capture that. And then eventually, once we get the physics and the gravity and everything working as we want it, what we do is we add these assets. So we have an assets tab. You're able to upload these OpenSea assets. We made a little demon sailboat so that there could be an enemy that was still on theme. We made a background and then sort of the savior boat. And then I'll show you guys what it looks like once we implemented this with all the different things. So it's coding, taking notes of what everything is. Here's kind of the first draft. The enemies are a little bit too small, but then eventually it gets out of control and it adds way too much enemies, and there's still kind of some issues. There it is. But the amount of progress that you can make there in like less than 30 minutes is pretty incredible. We did it all on live stream to show people. So super excited about the fact that was 3 months ago, and we've made insane improvements since then. So super excited about the near future. I do want to show you guys just one more thing that was actually made this morning. One of our content creators, shout out to Luke Franks, wanted to make his very first game, and he was sort of struggling, and then he started using ChatGPT 5, and he literally one shot in one prompt. He said, "Give me Flappy Bird something," and he was able to get a playable Flappy Bird game that actually looked quite good. And so he was like, okay, well, what am I going to do now that I one-shot it? And he decided to take the Ibiza King, or Ibiza Final Boss, that's what he's called, the Ibiza Final Boss meme that's been making the rounds, and turn him into a Flappy Bird. There's like speakers and neon lights and stages, and there's actually EDM music that's paired with this too that I thought was a beautiful touch. And so I think that this in a lot of ways is the future of gaming, where it's like super cultural, very like on the nose. You and a bunch of friends are laughing, and you go like, how can we turn this into a game? Oh, I'm just gonna prompt it, send it back and forth with a bunch of friends. You keep remixing it, people are adding things in, etc. But he was able to do this with absolutely no coding experience, and I thought that was just incredible.
Yeah, so I like it. The audio is a little loud there, but that's exactly what the Ibiza Final Boss would want it. So
Oh, you guys could hear that?
love
I
it.
couldn't hear it. Oh, I'm sorry, man.
Oh no, you're fine, you're fine. That's just the platform. But it was just a little loud, but I can always edit that later. I think it's really cool how fast Remix can jump on trends. Ibiza Final Boss is what, 4 days old? And
Yeah,
not
can't
only
be more
that,
than
but the guy was able to one-shot it and build a perfect game and deploy it to Remix. And now you can play it on the base app.
That's right. Yeah, you can. And, you know, he did it this morning, and this was his first game, really. So you can imagine a world in which you see a meme, and literally you go to Remix, and in less than an hour, you've created, like, the ultimate playable version of that meme. So the future is insane. And yeah, sorry for blaring the music. I will say it is royalty-free music, so at least you don't have to worry about getting shadow banned. But yeah, sorry about that. I actually have Twitter muted as a tab, which I realized is why I didn't know was coming through. Yeah, I think that this is just a microcosm of what we're going to see people doing over the next few years. And every time, you know, ChatGPT or Grok or whoever, Claude has been a favorite of a lot of our builders. Every time they come out with a meaningful update, it's essentially like they're updating our platform too. And I find that to be really exciting, because any day it could be a huge day for Remix and sort of a step function increase in how easy it is for people to create amazing things that have been living rent-free in their head, but they haven't been able to get out into the world.
No, I like it. And I think it's really amazing how fast Remix is building, how fast y'all are innovating, and how fast y'all are updating. We did the last base hackathon probably a few months ago, and for one of my gaming workshops, I built a game using Farcade.
Let's
and
go.
it took me 15 minutes. I was able to deploy it, and it was almost a one-shot. Almost. But it was really cool.
I love to hear that, man. Yeah, I mean, if anybody out there is like me, I mean, I've been addicted to video games since I was like 5 years old. And part of that is really wanting to take ideas in your head and be able to put them out into the world and create them. Because I know that I've played a ton of different games that have made me go, yeah, but what if it was combined with this? Or what if instead of like the item doing that, it did this other thing instead? And all of those are ideas that are now like possible to put into the world. And I think that that's just incredible. It's the democratization of this thing that we've all wanted to do, but it took millions of dollars. It took art studios. It took game studios. You had to learn how to use engines. You had to learn how to code. And then after you do all that, you have to figure out how to distribute it. And many game studios and game projects end up making over 50% of their budget now just marketing. And so if you don't know how to market, you've just spent 3 years of your life making your magnum opus, this beautiful thing that you love, and you can't get it in front of anybody. And I think that's just a terrible thing that a lot of indie developers find themselves coming up against. And so we're super excited to help people on the distribution side as well. Inside the Sim that I showed off on the website just a second ago, he actually sent me a message earlier today. He goes, the first 32 years of my life, I made 0 games. This year I've made 8. I was like, that's awesome, dude.
That's so cool. And I don't know, that was really crazy that he was able to build that in one shot. You honestly changed the narrative. Originally, it was playing Call of Duty, and it was a one-shot kill, or one-shot no-scope. And now it's one-shot on Remix.
I love that, man. Yeah, I hope everybody's able to one-shot a bunch of cool stuff later this year, because there's no feeling like bringing something new into the world. I think that that's something that people crave That's why people want to do art. That's why people want to cook. That's why people want to code, etc. And to be able to give people the access to do this, like we saw how Midjourney completely took off whenever people were able to make this really wild art with just a single prompt. And then we saw ChatGPT take off because people can make these documents and proliferate these ideas with just a single prompt. And gaming really is the next iteration of that. You know, it's a single prompt, a single session where you sit down, and by the end of it, you can create something that used to take months, if not years, and probably more than a single person. And so it's truly like the most exciting thing I can possibly imagine us to be going through while we're in the prime of our lives here, Zach. You know, we gotta enjoy it while we can.
That's so true. That's so true, especially with AI getting crazier and crazier. But I guess that means Remix is getting crazier and crazier. So it's a perfect flywheel. So
That's right.
y'all are doing a game jam with Forgotten Runes, and it's coming up. Where can people find out about this, and how can they build their first game on Remix?
Yeah, thanks so much for asking. So I'll just share my screen again to make it abundantly clear. But essentially, all you have to do is go to remix.gg. And then, actually, let me back out of my account here so I can show everybody one more time. So whenever you go here, you'll authenticate. And once you're logged in, you just go up to the top right and click your profile. And then whenever you click your profile, you'll see the Forgotten Runes game jam right here. And you can view details. It'll give you a little bit of information in the account or the Google Drive where their assets are. And essentially, the only thing you have to do in order to be eligible for the prizes is take some of the art that they've graciously given us access to and allowed us to use the IP of and integrate it into your games. And so in order to do that, all you have to do is I'll use Fred the Fisher as my example here. This is the fishing game that I made. All you have to do, and I'll show you the game real quick so you can see. So you drive this little boat, there's these fish that you pick up, and each of these are individual little art assets that I put into the game. So I could say, this one is fish number 1, this one's fish number 2, this one's fish number 3. And so whenever you decide which asset you want to use, you just upload it, and then you'll get an URL that's generated for it. So you'll take this URL and you'll tell the LLM, hey, this is the main character, and then you'll just paste the URL, and now it knows that art is attached to that character. And then whenever you're all set to go, you just go over to the details page, and there's Game Jam, and here you can say it's part of the Forgotten Runes Game Jam, and whenever you submit it, that makes sure that we categorize it correctly. But we're really, really excited to be working with these guys. I mean, they have some of the best art in the entire business. They've been around for a really long time. Bear Snake, one of the founders over there, has become a close personal friend of mine as well. Really, really good dude. So it's super exciting. And one of the best things, too, is like I was mentioning earlier, if your game graduates, which is our threshold for did it get enough plays, did it get enough reviews that people are enjoying it, and if you can prove that by graduating, which is just a couple thousand plays, then you can actually distribute your app as a standalone app onto these platforms. So I'll show you guys real quick how that looks on Farcaster. On Farcaster, these are all Remix apps, but they're standalone. So whenever you look at Far League, you'll actually see that it's made by Cryptomantis. It's not made by Remix. So these people are actually making a name for themselves, getting additional distribution by way of using the platform, which I think is just incredibly cool. Again, for how hard that is as an indie developer, we're really excited about being able to empower them.
I think you should be. I think the platform y'all are building is absolutely beautiful. I have one last question before we end the space. Sam, am I going to see your team at Base Camp?
Oh, dude, I would love to. Similar to Daryl, I do have Singapore and Korea Blockchain Week that I've already locked in. But if it's not one of those two, you will absolutely see me at Base Camp. I have a feeling even if it's not me, Charlie or Bobby, one of the co-founders, will probably make it out. Base was gracious enough to let us speak at ND1, the New Day One, their event that they had in Los Angeles not too long ago. And so we would love to also be there, making sure everybody's having a great time playing games at Base Camp as well. Nothing I would like more.
I love it. Well, Sam, thank you so much for joining. I think that's going to be a wrap for the 15th edition of the Base Game Night.
Congrats on 15 weeks, man. That's hard to do. Good work.
Of course. Eventually, I'm going to be like your space. Eventually. Give me enough time.
That's right.
I'm going to let Toki kick us all out. But thank you, Sam.
Of course, man. Rome wasn't built in a day.
All right, I think that that's it.